Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Constable Stephen Spencer, Winnipeg Police Public Information Officer. I'd like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, home of the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. We're here today to unveil the results of the 2025 Road Watch Drug-Impaired Driving Enforcement Project and Don't Drive High Awareness Campaign. We're pleased to be joined by Manitoba Minister of Justice and Attorney General, the Honorable Matt Wiebe, Manitoba Public Insurance President and CEO, Satvir Jatana. And to provide details of today's announcements, I'll turn the floor over to the Winnipeg Police Service Impaired Countermeasures Coordinator, Patrol Sergeant Stefan Fontaine, and I'll invite you up to conduct today's briefing.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I'd like to take this time to just quickly report on the results of our recent Drug-Impaired Driving Enforcement Campaign. So during the first 3 months of the year, we had members focusing their attention on the detection of drug-impaired drivers, specifically those under the influence of cannabis. These members are highly trained and equipped with the tools to help them identify the drivers who are under the influence of cannabis. I can tell you that during our campaign, we conducted a total of 302 traffic stops. Out of those traffic stops, we decided to conduct 207 drug screening tests. As a result of those drug screening tests, we found 97 drivers testing positive for recent consumption of cannabis. So that's 47% of the people we chose to test. They were found positive for cannabis. All these drivers were processed through administrative sanctions and received immediate roadside driver's license suspensions. One person in particular was also charged criminally for refusing to comply with our demand for testing. In addition, the crews also issued a total of 86 Provincial Offence Act tickets, including 19 for the improper storage of cannabis within a vehicle, and 4 for actually consuming cannabis inside a vehicle. Of note, all of these drivers that were found positive for cannabis were found in all areas of the city. Unfortunately, the poor choice of driving while under the influence of cannabis was found everywhere in our city. Obviously, these results are extremely concerning. And if we compare to last year's enforcement efforts, we're finding very, very similar results. Last year, we were seeing that same kind of almost 50% of the people we tested were found positive. And again, this year, we're finding the same results. It just simply reiterates the importance of our continued efforts on enforcement, education, and our ultimately the need to continue our attempts to combat impaired driving, whether it's by alcohol or drugs. This is also a good time to remind everyone that this is a discussion that should be had within amongst all of us, that if you are going to choose to consume, whether it's alcohol or drugs, you really need to make a plan not to drive. That is the safest and easiest solution to this problem. Friends and family should have these discussions and ultimately plan ahead before consuming any impairing substance. I want to recognize, of course, the continued support that Manitoba Public Insurance provides us in our battle against impaired driving, as well as the continued support of the Manitoba government. I will now turn it over to Minister of Justice Matt Wee for a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to join you today to recognize this year's highly successful Don't Drive High Drug-Impaired Driving Enforcement campaign. Our government takes road safety very seriously. We know that the consequences of drug-impaired driving are tragic and entirely preventable. In 2023, 10% of fatal collisions in Manitoba included impaired driving as a contributing factor. Even one instance of impaired driving is too many. Impaired driving leaves irreparable holes in the hearts of families, of friends, of whole communities who have lost loved ones to this selfish and senseless act. We'll never stop our efforts to end impaired driving and end its devastating consequences. As a Minister of Justice, I'm proud to support the Winnipeg Police Service and Manitoba Public Insurance in their campaign to make our roads safer. And I appreciate their leadership in launching the Don't Drive High Drug-Impaired Driving Enforcement Initiative. To all the officers, all law enforcement who have been involved in this project, I want to say a sincere thank you for making Manitoba roadways safer and for cracking down on drug-impaired driving in our province. Today's announcement builds on last year's successful enforcement campaign, which resulted in 243 traffic stops, the administration of 148 oral fluid tests, and the issuance of 36 provincial offense notices. One of the most concerning findings of that campaign, as we just heard, was that 43% of all oral fluid tests from traffic stops detected some cannabis. These numbers are disturbing, and they underscore the persistent risks drug-impaired drivers impose on our roads. While alcohol, of course, remains the leading cause of impaired driving offenses, cannabis impairment is now the second highest contributor. This is a reality that we cannot ignore. This year's campaign focused not only on the enforcement, but also on the importance of the education around this issue. We acknowledge the need for education on the unique risks caused by, for instance, cannabis edibles, which are a growing concern as sales of these products continue to rise. Manitobans need to know what they are ingesting, what the effects are, and, of course, what the risks are. Unlike inhaled cannabis, edibles take longer to process in the body, with effects peaking up to 4 hours after consumption and lasting up to 12 hours after consumption. This delayed impact can catch drivers off guard, leading to impaired judgment and slower reaction times behind the wheel. The message behind this campaign was loud and clear. Don't drive high. It's dangerous, it's detectable, and it's definitely illegal. I'm proud to announce the great success of this initiative. In just a short period of time, these incredible officers have saved lives and made a real difference on our roads. So in closing, I want to once again express my gratitude to the Winnipeg Police Service, to Manitoba Public Insurance, and the many responsible motorists who consistently drive sober. Road safety is a shared responsibility, and so every safe decision contributes to a stronger and a safer Manitoba. Let us continue to work together to spread the message, prevent impaired driving, and save lives. I look forward to our continued partnership to end impaired driving in Manitoba. And with that, I'd like to invite the President and CEO of MPI, Satvir Jatana, to the stage.
Good afternoon. Thank you to the Winnipeg Police Service for hosting today's event and making this information available. and also giving us the opportunity to be part of this event and this important conversation. At MPI, our mission is clear: to support safer roads for everyone in Manitoba. And that's why we are so proud of our partnership with Winnipeg Police Services on this Don't Drive High campaign, and through, of course, our other enhanced programs as well. Since 1998, this program has enabled law enforcement agencies across the province to target high-risk behaviors with funding and resources they need. This most recent campaign focused on drug-impaired driving, an issue that we know continues to grow in all parts of Manitoba. And the results we're hearing today highlights that reality. Frankly, they're staggering, and it bears the repeating that nearly 47% of all screening tests administered by Winnipeg Police Service came back positive for recent cannabis use. This figure combines with the 86 Provincial Offense Act notices issued during this initiative, confirms that, and our collision data shows that far too many Manitobans are still taking the risk of driving high and taking other safety in their own hands as well. In 2024, we know that nearly 1 in 3 fatal motor vehicle collision involved impaired driving. 1 in 3. And that means, whether we look around in this room, your dinner table, or groups of friends, next time you're getting together, consider the impact, what 1 in 3 really could be to us as individuals and as a community. It's a stark reminder of the preventable tragedies that can happen when someone makes the decision to drive impaired. The message for everyone who gets behind the wheel is simple. Drug impairment driving is dangerous, detectable, and absolutely illegal. Together, through education and enforcement initiatives such as like this, we can help to change the statistics that we've heard today. And that's why we're here and proud to support the efforts like this. And we continue to work along with our Winnipeg Police Services and Province of Manitoba. On behalf of MPI, thank you for your time today, and thank you for supporting this initiative and being, advocate for road safety through education, enforcement, and of course, the awareness, which is the most important facet in my view. Thank you.
If anyone has any questions, what we'll do is we'll address one person at a time. Would probably be the easiest. So if you have a question, if you'd like to start out with Stéphane Fontaine, we'll do with it. Go with it.
How do you decide where you're going to go and target? You said that it's all across the city of Winnipeg. I found that over the years, you fish where the fish are. Where are the fish? They're everywhere. How do you determine whether you're going to look at a certain vehicle, that type of thing? So I think it's a fascinating answer.
But you haven't heard my answer yet, but yeah. So what we do is exactly that. We know that people who consume cannabis go to and from cannabis dispensaries. There's over 130 or so dispensaries throughout the city of Winnipeg. So what I did was I made a plan to basically target those areas where there's dispensaries, and we watch the traffic coming to and from those known shops. The officers still have to form the proper grounds to make all of their lawful demands. But basically, that's what I split the city up in several different quadrants, and the crews were assigned to those different areas, and that's where they spent their time.
So are they going in, buying, getting back to their car, smoking up, and driving?
Well, yes and no. Most of them are under the influence as they're going to replenish their stock by the looks of it. A few of them, as I mentioned, we found smoking in the car. So without getting into details, the scenario might have been they returned to their car and decided to sample their new purchase right away. So all very concerning habits.
Are you going to bars and lounges as well? Because that's another area of consumption. Parking lots.
Yeah, so this one was particular to around the dispensaries. Having said that, we don't have blinders on, so if there was anything else that we had to focus on, we would. Now, the interesting part about this particular campaign is I actually started it kind of early in the afternoon into the evening, which is a little bit different than your typical kind of alcohol focused enforcement, which would be at the bars in the evening and early morning hours. As a matter of fact, our stats show that the majority of our positive tests were found between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. So that's an interesting stat in and of itself. So I think the behavior around the consumption of cannabis is a little bit different, where people seem to think that it's okay to do this throughout the day, which is fine, but ultimately you need to choose not to drive after doing so.
We heard the numbers, alcohol there is still number one cause, but when we heard these numbers, 47%. If there was to be a direct comparison, these numbers were pulled over searching for alcohol impairment versus drug impairment. Would we expect to see similar numbers in the outcome? Would we expect to see around that same 47%?
No. So I can tell you, without having the numbers with me, I know that and it's a little bit different because with alcohol, we have a few other authorities, mainly the mandatory alcohol screening. So we can test a whole bunch of people, which kind of skews your numbers as to test versus positive. But if you're going to compare the true, testing with the proper suspicion, we're finding a lot of more people under the influence of cannabis versus finding a lot of people under the influence of alcohol. Now, unfortunately, the numbers are not the same. Like we have a lot of people getting caught under the influence of alcohol as well. But if you're looking at a ratio, the cannabis user positive ratio is much higher.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think education has to continue about because this is for some a new drug that's available for people to legally consume. There's a lot of I think a learning curve as to how to do that safely. Of course, my message has always been that you should separate driving and the consumption altogether. And that ultimately is your safest way of going forward. But the reality is we have a new legal impairing substance that is now easily available to everyone. It seems like these dispensaries are popping up everywhere, so there's no shortage of supply. And as people get more comfortable exploring the new option, we should also ensure that we continue to increase our enforcement efforts and education and awareness campaigns.
What are some of those education concerns, though? Are you finding that drivers, people getting pulled over, are feeling that maybe this is a safer alternative to alcohol and that's impacting decisions?
And I'm not sure, but I can tell you that some belief maybe that the police don't have the tools or the know-how to detect drug-impaired driving, and that's simply not the case. We have members highly trained in the detection of drug-impaired drivers. We have the additional screening tools available to us. So we have the capability to test. Maybe people don't realize that and think they're going to get away with it. But I'm not too sure what ultimately people are thinking.
Were any of the drivers who tested positive under the age of legal purchase age?
I don't have that answer, but that doesn't sound familiar. So I'm going to say everyone, I believe, was of legal age to consume.
In terms of age demographics though, are you finding it was younger people getting charged more? Was it middle-aged? Do you have those?
Yeah, I'd have to pull that data out, but I can tell you that we typically see a full range of ages. So I don't have that data, but I know that from past enforcement efforts, although it seems to be a drug of choice for the younger generation, I can tell you that it's not overwhelming a younger generation problem. It seems to be across the board.
Where is distracted driving? Because, we used to have a lot more enforcement campaigns on distracted driving. We still hear a lot from our listeners on 680 CJOB looking over at the vehicle next to you. Oh, they're on their phone. Where is
Yes.
distracted driving?
So distracted driving campaigns they continue just the same. This is just an additional campaign that's, in this case, specific to drug-impaired driving or impaired driving.
I guess just maybe comment, we talk about alcohol, we talk about cannabis. Where's distracted driving?
Yeah, so we have campaigns that focus on specifically that, the use of cell phones while driving.
Still a big problem?
It seems to be, yes.
Patrol Sergeant, I mean, and I'd like to put this question to other officials here too, but from a police perspective, I mean, if we're seeing similar numbers to last year, we're seeing a high ratio of people being caught doing this. I mean, what else can police do to crack down on this? Try to stop people from doing it.
Well, I've always said that if we want to find them, we can easily find impaired drivers. So the more resources you put towards the enforcement, the more the numbers will continue. Unfortunately, the enforcement component is not the end-all be-all. There has to be that continued awareness campaign. I think it's safe to say at this point that, don't drink and drive is something that was hammered in multiple generations, and everyone at least should know that. We have some catching up to do when it comes to don't drive high. And that's what we got to keep pushing as our messaging. And again, hopefully it will be just become second nature to separate the two behaviors of driving and consuming.
Does the police service or MPI track any correlation between driving high and collisions? That type of data that shows a direct result. We'll often have the direct result of impairment, alcohol, and collisions, and distracted driving and collisions. But where's cannabis impairment?
Yeah, so absolutely, especially Canada-wide, when you look at a larger kind of statistical number. Again, alcohol is the leading cause of fatal collisions, for example. But what they're finding in their testing is that cannabis is the second one in line. So again, sometimes the stats get skewed because if someone is under the influence of alcohol and drugs, it'll get kind of just categorized under alcohol. So there may not be the proper data collection when it comes to specifying what impairing substance was on board. But that confuses things. But ultimately, there are those numbers out there when you're looking at Canada-wide statistics. But ultimately, what they're finding when they are testing someone, especially in the fatal collisions, is that cannabis is the second most popular drug found on board.
Perhaps for the Justice Minister or the CEO, I mean, a similar question. I mean, what else do you think needs to be done to drive this message to people here in Manitoba?
Well, we really see this as part of a suite of measures that we're taking around impaired driving more broadly. But I think to the point that was just made, this is about as much about education as it is about enforcement. You know, for many folks, I think that message of don't drink and drive, you know, has finally gotten through, continues to get through. But when it comes to cannabis, there's a lot of misconceptions about the dangers of driving under the influence, or just more broadly, you know, about exactly the kind of tools that law enforcement has, what kind of consequences there are. So this kind of work that we're doing here, again, $35,000 investment by the province, really makes a big difference in getting that message out, getting those folks off the road to keep our roads safer, but sending that clear message that impaired driving is going to continue to be a focus of our government. It's going to continue to be a focus of the Winnipeg Police, and that you just shouldn't do it. If you're under the influence, stay off the roads.
So will we see more campaigns in the sense that, you know, holiday campaign, they go out with police and fascinating, you know, for that month of December into January. And when you talk to people in the business of justice, they say, "What, we could use this June or July and August." Every time I see you, Minister, you've got tax dollars to spend here. Are you prepared to say we need to spend a lot more money in supporting these types of campaigns through MPI and news services?
Well, again, we have been investing in this area. And what the direction that I take is really from law enforcement. What we heard here today was about some innovative approaches to finding those folks who are under the influence. And what I appreciate about that is that these are the experts. These are the guys who can think these things through, come up with effective ways to get the message out and then to enforce it. So we're always looking for great ways to get engaged. And as you said, that does involve all times of the year. So we often focus on the holidays, but it does really matter at all times.
So you're prepared to do that?
I am prepared. And what I would like to say is that having MPI at the table is just such an important part of the piece of the puzzle to be able to have a real effect here. And so we just welcome their input here, because this is really how we're going to be most effective here in the province.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
MPI? We'd love to hear
Oh,
it.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. You just did the setup, Minister.
I see that.
So, checkbook out?
Checkbook out. Well, what I can talk about, how we are supporting this today. So there's three pieces. One is education, second is awareness, and the third is the data information that we provide from collision to our partners so they can also make informed decisions. When it comes to our investment, we invest nearly $2 million in the enhanced program, enhanced funding, and that's for all causes: impairment, distracted driving, don't drive high, and number of campaigns throughout the years. It's not any one particular, but it's throughout the year. In addition to that, MPI also invests in our own direct campaign to Manitoban. Whether it's the billboards you see, whether it's the banners you will see if you are enjoying a sporting event, and any venue that we have an opportunity to educate Manitobans not to drink and drive, not to drive high, we take that opportunity. It is within our mandate, it is our responsibility as a sole insured provider in Manitoba that we provide that education and awareness.
Should we expect more as a result of this? I think the evidence is quite clear that do you show return on that investment, 2 million? Let's say you up it to 3 or 4. Is there a business case to be made as the insurer that you get return on that investment through prevention?
We look at road safety beyond the ROI because it's very difficult to put a value on one lost life in Manitoba. But what I can say that we spend over $15 million annually towards the road safety in Manitoba through a number of initiatives. We're just talking about one initiative here. Other things like high school driver education. We want to get to the minds of young minds early on and teach them against drinking and driving high. We also have a program called Friends for Life where these individuals impacted by devastated collisions and they go share their experiences with young minds throughout Manitoba. We also partner with MAD Canada and MAD Manitoba to work with them. So there's never enough, but there's as an insurer, we balance that responsibility with fiscally responsible, but also ensuring that we do our part in preventing these tragedies and educating Manitobans on the safe behavior behind the wheel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, you two. Okay.